It was a day meant for joy, a celebration of love between two souls bound together in the sacred union of marriage. The air was filled with laughter and warmth as family and friends gathered to witness the wedding of Derek Hinkle, a master sergeant in his early 40s, a man known for his discipline, his integrity, and his deep love for his bride, Brittany Curtis. She, a vision of beauty in her mid-30s, stood by his side, seemingly the perfect match, a couple admired by all who knew them. The scene was picture-perfect, an embodiment of happiness and togetherness. Latino American culture and tradition enriched the ceremony, adding layers of meaning and significance to the day. It was a wedding that many would remember as the epitome of grace and celebration. But behind the smiles and the joyous facade, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect union, lay a truth shrouded in shadows. Unbeknownst to the guests who cheered for Derek and Brittany's future, a storm was brewing, one that would turn this day of celebration into a night of tragedy. Not everything is as it seems, and the happiness that graced this day would soon unravel, revealing secrets that could destroy the very foundations of trust and love. As the evening unfolds, the perfect image begins to crack, and the true nature of this union will come to light, leading to consequences that no one could have foreseen. Her story begins not with the glittering chandeliers of a grand wedding, but in a modest San Francisco neighborhood where dreams of luxury and security seemed like distant fantasies. From a young age, Brittany Curtis was acutely aware of the world's inequities, the struggle of making ends meet, and the harsh reality that love alone could not fill an empty stomach or provide a roof over one's head. These early experiences shaped her ambitions, planting in her a relentless desire to escape the limitations of her upbringing and to carve out a life where she would never again have to worry about financial security. It was this hunger for a better life that drove her every decision, including the fateful choice to pursue Derek Hinkle, a man who in many ways represented everything she had ever wanted. A man whose success and stability promised to shield her from the uncertainties of life. When Brittany met Derek, it wasn't love at first sight, but rather a calculated recognition of what he could offer. He was established, respected, and financially secure, the kind of man who could provide her with the life she had always dreamed of. And so Brittany set her sights on him, knowing that with the right moves she could secure a future that was as comfortable as it was prosperous. Their meeting seemed almost serendipitous, a chance encounter that quickly blossomed into a relationship. But for Brittany, it was never just about the attraction, though Derek was a handsome man with a kind smile and a gentle demeanor. It was about what he represented, a ticket out of the life she had always known, into a world of luxury and comfort. She saw in Derek not just a partner, but a provider, someone who could offer her stability in a way that no one else could. As their relationship deepened, Brittany played her role to perfection. She knew exactly how to present herself, how to say the right things, and how to be the woman Derek needed her to be. She was attentive, caring, and always seemed to understand him in a way that no one else could. To Derek, Brittany was everything he had ever wanted in a partner. Beautiful, supportive, and seemingly as in love with him as he was with her. But beneath the surface, Brittany was always calculating, always ensuring that every step she took brought her closer to securing the life she had always dreamed of. But then there was Kirk Hinkle, a man of a different ilk. Less grounded, more free-spirited, Kirk, in his mid-30s, was still finding his way in the world, his life not yet defined by the same success that marked his older brother Derek. He was charming in his own right, with a kind of boyish energy that made him magnetic, especially to women. But unlike Derek, Kirk didn't have the wealth or the stability that Brittany so desperately craved. Their first meeting was nothing like the calculated encounter with Derek. It was spontaneous, electric, a chance meeting that quickly turned into something more. Brittany didn't see Kirk as a prospect for her future, but rather as a distraction, a way to indulge in something thrilling and forbidden. Kirk was the opposite of everything she had planned for her life. But that's what made him so irresistible. There was a freedom in their connection, a sense of danger that came from knowing it could never be more than a secret affair. But as time went on, that secret became harder to keep, and the lines between love and manipulation began to blur. Their affair began innocently enough, a stolen kiss, a whispered conversation in the dark corners of rooms where no one could see them. But what started as a momentary lapse in judgment quickly grew into something much more intense. The thrill of their secret meetings became addictive, each encounter a test of how far they could push the boundaries without getting caught. For Kirk, the affair was a whirlwind of emotions. He was infatuated, captivated by a woman who seemed to understand him in a way that no one else did. But for Brittany, it was a balancing act. She knew that this relationship could never see the light of day, that it was a risk to everything she was working towards with Derek. Yet she couldn't let go. She needed Kirk, not just for the physical connection, but for the power it gave her. It was a way to control both brothers, to keep them in her orbit while she secured her future. The affair gave Brittany a sense of control, a way to keep Kirk entangled in her web, ensuring that he would never reveal the truth. She used every tool at her disposal, her charm, her wit, and even her vulnerability, to keep him close, making sure he felt just enough guilt to stay silent, but not so much that he would walk away. Each meeting became a carefully choreographed dance, one where she held all the power. As the wedding day approached, Brittany's plans began to take shape. She was pregnant, a fact that could have easily unraveled everything. But instead, she turned it to her advantage. The child she carried was not Derek's, but she made sure that he believed it was. With each passing day, she reinforced his belief that this was their child, the culmination of their love and the start of their family. Derek, completely unaware of the deceit, was overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a father. His love for Brittany only grew, deepening with the anticipation of the life they were about to build together. He was blind to the signs, so in love and so trusting that he never once questioned her story. Every time Brittany placed his hand on her growing belly, she felt a surge of satisfaction, knowing that her plan was working perfectly. Derek was so consumed by his love and excitement that he never noticed the cracks in the facade, the moments when Brittany's smile didn't quite reach her eyes or when she seemed distracted. He was already dreaming of the future, of the child they would raise together, and of the life they would build as a family. For Derek, the wedding was not just a ceremony but the beginning of a new chapter, one that he believed was founded on love and trust. Little did he know it was built on a foundation of lies. As the wedding day drew nearer, the tension began to build. Kirk's guilt gnawed at him, eating away at his resolve to stay silent. He knew that once the vows were exchanged, once the rings were on their fingers, there would be no going back. The secret he carried would become even more dangerous, a ticking time bomb that could destroy everything. Meanwhile, Brittany's determination only grew stronger. She couldn't afford to let anything slip now, not when she was so close to securing the life she had always wanted. She continued to play her part perfectly, all the while keeping Kirk in check, making sure he stayed in line. But the weight of her deception was beginning to bear down on her, the strain of maintaining the facade starting to show in small, almost imperceptible ways. As the wedding day loomed, the air was thick with unspoken tension, the kind that hinted at the storm that was about to break. Brittany, Derek, and Kirk were all hurtling towards a collision, one that would change their lives forever. The stage was set and the pieces were in place. All that was left was for the inevitable to unfold. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for what was meant to be the happiest moment in Derek's life. Guests began to arrive, filling the air with laughter and excitement, their faces beaming with the joy of celebration. But amidst this sea of happiness, one man stood apart. Kirk, the groom's younger brother, his heart heavy with a secret that threatened to unravel everything. As he watched his older brother radiant with love and anticipation, Kirk felt the weight of his own guilt pressing down on him, suffocating him with its intensity. He couldn't help but feel the sting of jealousy and regret, knowing that the child Brittany carried was his, yet here she was, marrying another man, his own brother. Every smile, every embrace between Derek and Brittany was like a dagger to his heart, reminding him of the life he could never claim as his own. He tried to push the thoughts away to focus on the celebration, but the more he tried to suppress his emotions, the more they clawed at him, demanding to be acknowledged. As the ceremony progressed, Kirk's discomfort grew. The vows, the exchange of rings, the kiss that sealed their union, all of it felt like a cruel joke, a painful reminder of the lie that had brought them to this moment. He stood there beside his brother, playing the role of the supportive sibling, but inside he was a storm of conflicting emotions. How could he stand by and watch as another man, his own brother, unknowingly took on the responsibility of raising his child? The thought gnawed at him, twisting his insides with a mix of anger, sorrow, and helplessness. The guests, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within Kirk, cheered and applauded, their joy a stark contrast to the darkness that had settled in his heart. He tried to smile to participate in the festivities, but every laugh felt hollow, every congratulation a reminder of the life he would never have. As Derek and Brittany walked down the aisle hand in hand, Kirk felt a pang of despair, knowing that with each step they were moving further away from the truth and deeper into a future built on lies. Meanwhile, Derek was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. His heart was light, filled with nothing but love and excitement for the future that awaited him and his new bride. He moved through the crowd with ease, his face lit up with a smile that seemed to reach his very soul. To him, this was the culmination of all his hopes and dreams. The day he had been waiting for, the moment when everything finally fell into place. He greeted the guests with genuine warmth, thanking them for being a part of this special day. Each handshake, each hug, was a confirmation of the happiness that radiated from him, a testament to the love he felt for Brittany. He looked at her often, his eyes soft with affection, filled with the promise of a lifetime together. In his mind, there was no room for doubt, no space for suspicion. He trusted her completely, believed in the future they were building together, and was eager to start the next chapter of their lives. As Derek continued to revel in the joy of the day, he remained oblivious to the dark cloud hovering over his brother. He couldn't see the tension in Kirk's posture, the tightness in his smile, or the way his eyes lingered on Brittany with a mix of longing and pain. Derek's happiness was so overwhelming, so all-encompassing, that it blinded him to the signs of unrest in those around him. To him, the day was perfect, unmarred by the turmoil that simmered just beneath the surface. The contrast between Derek's joy and Kirk's growing despair was stark, a silent but powerful testament to the lies that had brought them to this moment. While Derek floated on a cloud of bliss, Kirk was sinking deeper into a pit of anguish, the weight of his secret threatening to pull him under. But for now, Derek remained untouched by the darkness, his heart full and his future bright, unaware of the storm that was about to break. And then there was Brittany, the bride, the orchestrator of this complex dance of deception. On the surface, she was the picture of calm, her face serene as she moved through the day with grace and poise. She played her role flawlessly, every smile, every word carefully measured to maintain the illusion of perfection. But behind her composed exterior, Brittany was fully aware of the tension that simmered just beneath the surface, the turmoil that threatened to upend everything if not carefully managed. Throughout the day, she continued to weave her web, subtly manipulating both men to keep them in check. With Derek, it was easy. He was so in love, so blinded by his trust in her, that a simple touch, a reassuring smile was enough to keep him content. She knew exactly what to say, how to act to keep his suspicions at bay, reinforcing the lie that bound them together. Every time he looked at her with those adoring eyes, she felt a surge of satisfaction, knowing that her plan was working perfectly. But Kirk was a different story. She could see the turmoil in his eyes, the way his emotions churned just beneath the surface, threatening to spill over at any moment. He was restless, struggling with the reality of what was happening, and she knew she had to keep him calm, to ensure he didn't do anything that would ruin everything she had worked so hard to build. She used every tool in her arsenal, her charm, her understanding, her ability to make him feel both guilty and needed, to keep him under her control. As the day progressed, Brittany found moments to speak with Kirk, pulling him aside under the guise of concern, but in reality, it was to ensure he stayed in line. She reminded him of the consequences of revealing the truth, of the pain it would cause not just to Derek, but to the child they both now had to protect. She played on his emotions, on his love for their unborn child, using it as a weapon to keep him silent. All the while, she reassured him that everything would be all right, that they could still find a way to make this work, as long as he trusted her and followed her lead. Brittany's calm exterior hid the chaos brewing inside her. She knew she was walking a tightrope, that one wrong move could bring everything crashing down. But she was determined to see it through, to secure the life she had always dreamed of, no matter the cost. Her manipulation was subtle but effective, a delicate balance of reassurance and control that kept both men exactly where she needed them to be. And so the day continued, the perfect image maintained as the storm clouds gathered on the horizon, waiting for the right moment to unleash their fury. The reception had been everything they had hoped for, an evening of laughter, celebration, and toast to the future. The guests, now satiated with food, drink, and merriment, began to drift away, leaving behind the remnants of what had been a perfect day. As the night wore on, Brittany, her energy waning, felt the weight of the day's events pressing down on her. She had played her part perfectly, kept up the facade of the loving, happy bride, but now, as the guests departed and the lights dimmed, the exhaustion seeped into her bones. She excused herself from the festivities, leaving Derek behind to see off the last of the guests, his smile still as bright as ever, unaware of the storm that was about to break. Brittany made her way back to the hotel, her steps heavy, her mind clouded with thoughts of what was to come. She knew that Kirk was struggling, that the day's events had pushed him to the brink, and she feared what he might do. But she was too tired to think clearly, too drained to prepare for the confrontation that was inevitable. All she wanted was to escape, to find a moment of peace before the weight of her choices came crashing down on her. But even as she walked the quiet halls of the hotel, she could feel the tension in the air, a palpable sense of dread that made her heart race. She entered the room, closing the door behind her with a sigh of relief. The silence was comforting, a brief respite from the chaos of the day. She moved slowly, her mind racing with thoughts of how to handle Kirk, how to keep everything from unraveling. She knew he would come. He couldn't stay away, not with everything that was at stake. And as much as she dreaded the confrontation, she knew it had to happen. There was no more hiding, no more pretending. The truth was on the verge of being exposed, and she had to be ready. Kirk lingered at the reception, his eyes following Brittany as she made her way out, his heart pounding in his chest. The evening had been a torment, every moment a reminder of the lie he was living, the secret he was keeping from the brother who trusted him more than anyone else in the world. He had tried to hold it together to push down the emotions that threatened to overwhelm him, but as the night wore on, the weight of his guilt became unbearable. He watched Derek still laughing, still basking in the glow of his perfect day, and felt a surge of anger mixed with sorrow. How could he continue to stand by and watch as his brother was deceived, as his own child was about to be raised by another man? The decision was made in a moment, a snap of resolve that propelled him forward. He couldn't keep quiet any longer. He had to confront Brittany, to demand answers, to find out what was going to happen to his child. His legs moved on their own, carrying him out of the reception hall and towards the hotel, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. What would he say? How would he begin? The questions raced through his mind, but no answers came. All he knew was that he had to face her, had to confront the reality of what they had done. As he approached the hotel, the familiar knot of dread twisted in his stomach. This was it, the moment that would change everything. He could feel the tension in the air, the oppressive silence that hung over the hallways as he made his way towards the room. Every step felt like it took an eternity, his heart pounding louder with each one. He was on the verge of shattering the illusion that had held them all together, and the weight of that realization made his hands tremble. But there was no turning back now. The door was just ahead, and with it, the confrontation that had been building since the moment this lie began. Kirk reached the door and hesitated, his hand hovering just above the surface. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, the adrenaline surging through his veins. For a moment, he considered turning back, walking away from the mess they had created. But the thought of his child, of the life that would be lived without him, steeled his resolve. He took a deep breath and knocked. Inside the room, Brittany flinched at the sound. She knew who it was even before she opened the door. With a trembling hand, she turned the knob and pulled the door open, revealing Kirk standing there, his eyes filled with a mix of determination and fear. Without a word, she stepped aside, allowing him to enter. The door closed behind him with a soft click, sealing them off from the world outside. Kirk stood there for a moment, the silence between them thick with tension. Then, as if the dam had burst, the words came tumbling out. "What are we going to do?" Kirk's voice was strained, barely above a whisper, but the intensity behind it was unmistakable. His eyes were wild, filled with a desperation that mirrored the turmoil in his heart. "What's going to happen to our child?" Brittany sighed, her shoulders slumping as she tried to muster the strength to face him. "Kirk, we've been over this," she began, her tone calm, almost too calm. "I married Derek for stability, for the life he can provide for me and for this child. It's too late to change anything now." But her words did nothing to soothe him. Instead, they ignited the anger that had been simmering within him all night. "Stability?" he spat, his voice rising as he took a step closer. "You mean you're going to let my brother raise my child, and you expect me to just stand by and watch? How can you ask that of me, Brittany?" The room crackled with tension as the argument escalated, their voices growing louder, more heated with each exchange. Kirk's frustration boiled over, his love for his child clashing violently with his loyalty to his brother. He wanted to protect his child, to be there for them, but the situation Brittany had created left him feeling trapped, cornered with no way out. He couldn't bear the thought of another man, even his own brother, taking his place in his child's life. Brittany, for her part, tried to maintain her composure, but the strain was beginning to show. "You think this is easy for me?" she shot back, her voice shaking with emotion. "I'm doing what I have to do to survive, to give this child a future. Don't you understand that? We made our choices, Kirk, and now we have to live with them." But Kirk wasn't listening. His anger had taken hold, driving him to the edge. "And what about me? What about our child? Do we mean nothing to you?" His voice cracked, the pain behind his words cutting through the air like a knife. He was desperate, pleading with her to see his side, to find a way out of this mess they had created. But Brittany's resolve was firm. She had come too far to let it all fall apart now. "It's too late," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of Kirk's labored breathing. "We can't go back." The room fell into a tense silence, the weight of her words settling over them like a shroud. Kirk's mind raced, his emotions a chaotic swirl of anger, fear, and despair. He had hoped for answers, for a solution, but instead he found only more questions, more uncertainty. He felt the walls closing in, the reality of their situation pressing down on him with suffocating force. The confrontation had given him no solace, no resolution, only a deeper sense of helplessness. And then, in the midst of their heated exchange, Derek approached the room. After bidding farewell to the last of the guests, he had made his way upstairs, eager to reunite with his bride and savor the first quiet moments of their marriage. As he walked down the hallway towards the door, a smile still played on his lips, his mind filled with thoughts of the future they would build together. But as he neared the door, he heard something that made him stop in his tracks. Raised voices, a heated conversation emanating from the room. He froze, his hand hovering just inches from the door. The words were muffled, but the tone was unmistakable. There was tension, anger, desperation. His heart began to pound in his chest, a cold dread creeping over him as he strained to listen. He recognized the voices. Brittany's, filled with a mixture of frustration and resignation, and Kirk's laced with anger and pain. The realization that something was terribly wrong settled over him like a heavy weight, but he couldn't move, couldn't bring himself to interrupt. Instead, he pressed his ear to the door, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. As the conversation inside continued, Derek's world slowly began to unravel. The words he overheard were like daggers, each one cutting deeper into the fabric of the life he thought he knew. He heard Kirk demanding to know what would happen to his child, the child Derek had believed was his own. He heard Brittany admitting that she had married him for stability, for the life he could provide, not out of love. The truth was laid bare before him in those few agonizing moments, the full extent of the betrayal sinking in with every word. Derek stood there, broken, his breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps as the weight of the truth bore down on him. His legs felt like they might give out beneath him, his mind reeling with the implications of what he had just heard. The woman he loved, the brother he had trusted, they had conspired together and lied to him and shattered the very foundation of his life. He had been deceived in the worst possible way, and the future he had dreamed of was nothing but a cruel illusion. He remained there, rooted to the spot, as the altercation inside continued. Every word, every accusation, every plea for understanding cut through him like a knife, each one driving the pain deeper. He couldn't bring himself to interrupt, couldn't face them just yet. He needed to gather his strength to process the enormity of the betrayal before confronting the people he had held dearest. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Derek's resolve hardened. He knew he couldn't avoid the confrontation any longer. With a deep breath, he steadied himself, raised his hand, and knocked on the door. The sound of the knock echoed through the room, cutting through the heated exchange between Brittany and Kirk. Inside, they both fell silent, the reality of the situation crashing down on them as they realized they had been overheard. The knock was soft but firm, a signal that the moment of reckoning had arrived. Kirk, his heart pounding in his chest, exchanged a glance with Brittany. They both knew what was coming, but neither of them was prepared for the devastation they had wrought. Slowly, Kirk moved towards the door, his hand trembling as he turned the knob and pulled it open. When the door swung open, Derek stood there, his face a mask of devastation. His eyes met Kirk's, and in that moment, the bond of brotherhood that had once been so strong was shattered beyond repair. The pain in Derek's eyes was undeniable, a reflection of the deep, agonizing wound that had been inflicted upon him. There were no words, no explanations that could fix what had been broken. The truth was out, and the consequences were irreversible. As Derek stepped into the room, the full weight of the betrayal settled over him, and the room was plunged into a heavy, suffocating silence. The confrontation that had begun between Brittany and Kirk had now engulfed Derek as well, pulling him into the maelstrom of betrayal and despair. The realization hit him again, this time with even greater force, and he felt something inside him break, a deep, agonizing crack that would never fully heal. The woman he loved, the brother he had trusted, they had destroyed him. And as he stood there, the enormity of their betrayal washing over him, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Derek stood in the room, his world collapsing around him as the full weight of the betrayal settled over him like a suffocating blanket. The love and trust he had once held so dearly for Brittany and Kirk were replaced by a whirlwind of emotions, overwhelming sorrow, blinding rage, and a profound sense of loss. His heart, once full of hope and joy, now felt like a heavy, shattered stone in his chest. He looked at them, his wife and his brother, the two people he had trusted above all others, and saw them for what they truly were: betrayers, destroyers of the life he had envisioned. The reality of their deceit was too much to bear, and he felt the cracks in his psyche widening, threatening to break him apart. How could they do this to him? How could they shatter everything he held sacred? Derek's mind raced, struggling to make sense of the chaos that had been unleashed. Every moment he had shared with Brittany, every promise he had made, every dream he had for their future, it was all a lie, a cruel joke played at his expense. The love that had once defined his life was now the source of his deepest agony, and he couldn't escape the suffocating grip of despair that tightened around his heart. Driven by the intensity of his emotions, Derek turned towards Brittany and Kirk, his voice trembling with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. "How could you do this to me?" he demanded, his eyes blazing with anger. How could you both betray me like this? I loved you. I trusted you both." His words hung in the air like a death sentence, each one laced with the pain of a man whose life had been torn apart. Brittany and Kirk stood before him, their own guilt and shame evident in their eyes, but there were no words that could undo the damage they had caused. The room seemed to shrink around them, the walls closing in as Derek's emotions erupted in a torrent of rage and sorrow. "You were my brother," Derek shouted at Kirk, his voice cracking with the weight of his grief. "How could you betray me like this? How could you look me in the eye and lie to me every day?" His gaze then shifted to Brittany, the woman he had believed to be his soulmate. "And you, how could you deceive me like this? How could you make me believe this was our child, our future? You've destroyed everything." The confrontation was raw, the emotions too powerful to contain. Tears welled up in Derek's eyes as he struggled to comprehend the depth of the betrayal. Every word he spoke was filled with the anguish of a man who had lost everything, his heart breaking with each breath. The tension in the room was unbearable, the air thick with the unspoken truth that nothing would ever be the same again. The tension in the room reached its breaking point, the emotions spiraling out of control as the confrontation took on a life of its own. In the midst of the chaos, an unforeseen event unfolded, a tragic and irreversible moment that would forever alter the lives of everyone involved. Derek, consumed by his grief and anger, made a desperate, impulsive decision, one that would lead to devastating consequences. In a fit of rage, Derek reached for something, anything, to give physical form to the pain tearing through him. His hand found a knife, a decorative piece from the hotel room. In a split second, he lunged towards Kirk, his emotions driving him to the brink of madness. The room exploded into chaos, the sounds of their struggle echoing through the walls, and then, in a split second, it happened. An accident, a moment of pure tragedy that no one could have predicted. Kirk fell, his body crumpling to the floor, the life draining from him in an instant. Brittany screamed, the sound piercing the air as she rushed to Kirk's side, but it was too late. The damage was done, and there was no turning back. Derek stood frozen, his mind reeling as the reality of what he had done began to sink in. The room fell into a suffocating silence, the weight of the tragedy pressing down on them like a crushing force. What had been a day of celebration had now turned into a night of horror, the consequences of their actions sealing their fates. The aftermath of the tragedy was a haunting silence, broken only by the sound of Brittany's sobs as she cradled Kirk's lifeless body. Derek stood there, his mind numb, his heart shattered beyond repair. The consequences of their lies and betrayals had led to this, an irreversible moment that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The lives that had once been intertwined by love and trust were now irrevocably torn apart, each one marked by the scars of that fateful night. The room, once filled with the promise of a new beginning, was now a tomb of shattered dreams and broken lives. Derek, Brittany, and Kirk had all paid the price for their secrets, their betrayals, and their deceptions. There was no redemption, no going back. The impact of that night would echo through their lives forever, a constant reminder of the devastating power of lies and the fragility of trust. As the video draws to a close, we are left to reflect on the events that transpired, the choices that were made, the secrets that were kept, and the lives that were destroyed as a result. The story of Derek, Brittany, and Kirk serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of betrayal, of the devastating consequences that can arise when trust is broken. What is the cost of deception? How far can a lie go before it unravels, taking everything down with it? These are the questions that linger in the aftermath of this tragedy, questions that force us to confront the darker aspects of human nature. The choices we make, the secrets we keep, each one carries a weight, a potential to alter the course of our lives and the lives of those we love. In the end, we are left to ponder the moral implications of their actions, to consider the heavy toll that betrayal and lies can exact on our souls. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it can never truly be mended. The story of Derek, Brittany, and Kirk is a testament to that truth. A cautionary tale of love, betrayal, and the tragic consequences of secrets kept too long. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe to this channel for more content that explores the complexities of human relationships, the moral dilemmas we face, and the stories that resonate with us all.